Artemi Panarin, who has 1 year left on his contract, as dynamic a player as there was in the league this year, helping the Jackets get to the playoffs for a second consecutive year, but is not right now interested in talking about a long-term deal with the Blue Jackets. And so you're in a situation where they have 1 year left on this contract, and you got the draft coming up, and the Jackets, as Jarmo Kekalainen said in his statement, have to do what, quote, is best for the organization. But they would like to keep Artemi Panarin long-term in Columbus. And we are now joined by Aaron Portzline of The Athletic to get the latest on this. And, Porty, we talked to you, Stan and I did just a couple of weeks ago about some of the off-season moves and things that were priorities. And this is certainly solidifying Artemi Panarin long-term was a priority, and it certainly still is. Is the news of today a huge surprise to the organization?
I think it is. Yeah, I don't know if it's huge necessarily, but it's definitely a surprise. You never know where these are going until you sit down and start talking numbers. What's surprising to me is apparently they hadn't even gotten to that point. So this is not a negotiating ploy. This is not him not being happy with the amount that Columbus offered, the term that they offered, because they hadn't even gotten to that point yet. This is him saying, I don't know if I want to stay here or not, and it doesn't matter how much you're paying me or how long the term is. Now, careful to note, this is not the end of Blue Jackets and Panarin. He has said he doesn't want to start talking contract until the fall. The question, of course, becomes if Columbus can dare wait that long before deciding what to do with Panarin and then put themselves at great risk of losing the player.
Yeah, if the Blue Jackets are going to move him, I mean, Friday is the draft. I mean, is it, a hot burner thing that they want to see what the market is like right now? Can they wait till the fall? Does that decrease their chances of getting a market value trade? What's the best time if they're going to get a blockbuster deal for this guy? What's the best time to move him?
Well, certainly now is the best time to move him, because not only would they get probably the best offer for him, but teams have flexibility right now with free agency soon to be upon us, with there's new room now created with the salary cap. Teams have as much flexibility right now as they're going to have between now and this time next year. So this is definitely beneficial to them to know where he stands before the draft, rather than waiting to find this out on July 1st. I don't think there's a guarantee, certainly, that he's traded this weekend at the draft, but now the Blue Jackets have a situation where they can get a deal in place and perhaps even go back to him and say, 8 years, $72 million, where you're traded in an hour to wherever. And it could come to that if they get the right deal this weekend. I think it would almost be prudent for them to do so.
Visiting with Aaron Portzline of the Dispatch on the news today regarding Artemi Panarin. I don't know. You have a player that is that dynamic, and we saw what he could do in the season that he had, and it's the kind of a player I think the Blue Jacket fans have been looking for a long, long time, and you envision this guy being the centerpiece of this organization going forward. And then the news of today, is it deflating? Aaron, I mean, in covering the team, is this a deflating moment for Blue Jacket fans that this guy that you look at as the future, and again, we don't know, maybe things will change in the next week or before the season, but that he clearly seems to be indicating that, I don't know about staying around here.
Yeah, I don't know whether I would imagine that's how the fans feel. I can tell you that the organization has to accept this as a gut punch. I mean, I think the feeling was that Panarin would be the easier of the two, between he and Sergei Bobrovsky, would be the easier of the two to sign to an extension. And again, it's not him saying, I'm not happy with the future of the team. I'm not happy with the city. Just him saying, I'm not sure. And if you're the Blue Jackets, that's not good enough. You need him to be sure, because you've got a future to plan for here. And this yes, is absolutely disruptive to them and what the summer they had hoped would hold for them. Is there a chance he still signs here? yes, I just don't know if this team can risk going into the fall and not knowing if he's going to stay here or not.
One of the things, Aaron, if they're going to trade him, isn't the team, if you work on a deal here, the team you're trading him to has the same situation. Don't you have to work with Panarin and say, all right, where do you want to go? Because they're not going to want to sign him unless they're all in for 1 year, unless they have some long-term assurances from the guy too. Don't you almost have to have some kind of conversation with Panarin? All right, if it's not here, we need to know where you want to go and where you would sign long-term.
Yeah, and those conversations will absolutely be had. I mean, I think that then gets a little bit tricky there. Is the player being fully honest with you and saying he's just not sure about Columbus, not that he just doesn't know where he wants to be for the next 8 years? And then you're asking him to give you a list of teams you would rather go to? That seems to be putting cards on the table from my perspective. I mean, again, I trade him anywhere. And I know you're not going to get Artemi Panarin in return, but the longer you wait, the greater the risk that you're not going to get anything for him. Look where the New York Islanders are with Jonathan Tavares. Now they're down to 1 week where this kid, he is the franchise. And that's a little bit different because they drafted him. He's been there his entire career. He's pretty much been the face of that organization. Panarin's just been here for a year. But this is the guy you were building around. This is the guy who would have made it easier for Bob to sign here. Long term, certainly. This is a guy that people would come to this town to play with because he can elevate people's games like that. They have to, in my opinion, they need to cut the cord here really quickly and give him an ultimatum to get it done because a team in this market cannot just lose a player like that with no return. That's absolutely a death knell.
What is his market value? I mean, what can they? I know that's a big question, Aaron, but what can they get for him? I mean, draft choice-wise, player-wise, he is an elite player. It would seem like they could get a lot in return.
They could get a lot in return, and you're right to say that the trade market has diminished a bit because the team that would be acquiring him, unless it is stated that he wants to sign there long-term, is going to be in the same in the same sort of mercy that Columbus has said, will you sign here? And so they're not going to get the full return that they would for a player who was signed long-term in the future. But there are ways to sort of manipulate the return for that, if you're the Blue Jackets, to sort of mitigate the return. So you could say you trade him for a big-time prospect, an established player, and a draft pick. And if he signs with that team, the team that you trade him to, that draft pick becomes a first-round draft pick. If he doesn't sign with them, that draft pick is a third-round draft pick or whatever. You could put future considerations into this to make the trade a little less of a blow to both teams, right? Because you're right. If he were signed long-term, Panarin would bring an absolutely massive return. The fact that his contract is up is a major deterrent for people.
Real quick, Aaron, before I let you go, I mean, you mentioned gut punch to the organization. If you had to put a percentage chance that Artemi Panarin is still with the Blue Jackets, is it 50-50? Is it less than that? What do you think?
Still with him opening night?
Yes.
I would have said it was above 50-50 today. I think it's slightly below that now. Yeah, this is not a good day for Columbus. I don't think it's the end of anything, but it certainly is a clear expression of something about Panarin other than I want to be.
All right, Porty, great stuff. Appreciate it. I know you're busy today on a day like this. Appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us.